with inserting components. When you have your East drawing opened, such as this, you would see that we have a few things already prepared for you. So just make sure you have something like the grid, these polylines here, and the section line here. Just make sure those are open. If not, you would be able to see those on the structure browser. If there's anything hidden, I think you would be familiar by now that you can show or hide elements or entities from the structure browser. So just make sure that you have all these elements already shown in your drawing. So go ahead with components. You will find a component library here on the right side of your screen. So it's called the library. And for those of you who are familiar with the previous versions, from before it was actually called components. So right now it's already called library. So that may be something that you might have missed. So just make sure that you also relay that to possible customers if they're still looking for components, especially when they're trying to find it in the panels. So how you're able to find that components library will be through right-clicking on that panel list, and you'll see panels, and you'll see all your panels here. So just choose which one you need. So it's supposed to be the balloon icon there. So that's the library. Okay, so when you open the library, you would see a lot of already built-in libraries that we have within BricsCAD. You can view it in a grid. Of course, you can also view it as a list, so that might be better for you. And this list of components and folders of libraries, you can add RFAs as well on top of the components that are already built into BricsCAD. So yesterday, we mentioned that if customers have RFAs or Revit families that they've built over the years, they don't have to waste those. They can actually just go through the hamburger menu here, go to Manage Libraries, and you'll be finding a library directory path. So you would find these three dots here, just click on that. And you can add a certain path here through this add path, and there'll be three dots again that will appear for you. And you should be able to find and go through your machine where that specific library folder might be for your RV folders. So you can select a folder, click OK, and that should be added into the library that you have for the components panel. So that's just a tip for you when customers ask about this, because we do get asked about this a lot. So the very first command that we'll be going through today will be on page 28 of your training guides. It's called BIM insert. So when you go to the components library, you would find the folders. Once you get into each of these folders, let's say, for example, let's go to just a window here. There's a window folder. Go inside, just click once, you'd see a lot of the components already there. You can click on one, just left click, and you should be able to click that and insert it accordingly in your model. So one of the other ways to also insert a certain component, aside from the ones in your library, would be calling the quad cursor from an empty space in your model space. So I'll just right click here. So I have the quad menu, and you would be able to find this BIM component, BIM insert. So another way would be to type it in. So on your command line would be BIM insert. So once you bring that up, you would be able to search through any folders you have on your machine for any of the libraries that you may be having outside the library that you already have inside BricsCAD. So I hope that's clear. So there are several ways for you to be able to do that. Now let's go to inserting a window, and make sure that you have your dynamic UCS on. So right now I'll just show you why this is important. So I'll have it off first, and let's just use one of these windows. So you see, if I have my dynamic UCS setting off, I will not be able to insert this window where I want it to be on a certain wall. It's just going to be floating around like that. So you see when I zoom in, it's there. But if I hover on my building, it's not going to be able to be inserted. So once I have my dynamic UCS on, if I click again on that, it will allow me to now insert this particular window into this part of my wall. So it's going to be dynamic in terms of targeting the specific plane or wall that you want that component to be inserted in. So just a tip again for that, because some users, they might miss the dynamic UCS. So we know that you'll probably encounter some user issues like this. So that's one thing you should remember. Okay, so we have the one by one window here. And if you notice, I haven't clicked on it yet to be inserted inside the building or inside this wall. I'm just hovering around, and the plane wherein it's going to be inserted in is highlighted for me. But before clicking into this wall, I also have the properties panel brought up. It will instantly come up when you bring in a component. So it will show you some parameters that you or properties that you might want to change. So for example, here we have the width and the height. I might want this to be 10,000 instead of 1,000. So let's just add 10 to each of these. So once I have this window again hovering on this plane, it's going to be the new size that I already indicated on my properties panel. So that's pretty good. And before also inserting it in, I might want to decide on the displacement or the placement of this window on this face of the wall. So you see that we have our dynamic dimensions being highlighted in blue. So to be able to input the information, I might just want to type in the numbers. So for example, on the left side, I will click on tab. So remember that you just click on tab so you can go into each of these dimensions. And on this left side, we might want to put in 1007. So just click tab, and then it will instantly be locked and placed into the 1007 millimeters away from the leftmost side of our wall. So just remember to tab and make sure also that you are in the right dimension or direction of this placement. So this is something that we also get asked a lot about. So just remember that. And if you see on the lower part, there's also, again, the hotkey assistant, which we also have been discussing all throughout the sessions previously and also yesterday. So if you click control, you'll see that you are able to still change the dimensions of the window itself. So I don't want to change that anymore. And I'll just click control again to go back to the previous option for me, which is my previous 1007 away from the leftmost side of the wall. So that's pretty good. And I will just click my mouse on the left click, and it'll be inserted for me. So I think that's easy enough. You just note that you're still able to change, and it's very flexible for your customers to be able to use FixCAD this way. So once you have this window, it doesn't mean also that it's already locked in. You can still change information here. So let's say this height, instead of 10,000, let's put it at 6,000. 6,000 millimeters. Yep. So you'll see that this window is now changed for us. So this flexibility is pretty important for us to promote also, since a lot of the information will change throughout the course of probably some construction or client changes. So this is pretty good in terms of the flexibility that they're able to take advantage of within FixCAD. So that's a window. And if you go through this section here, you should have a vertical section that you're seeing in your model. So just double click. Again, this is something that we discussed yesterday. Just double click so you can open that section. And let's zoom into this wall and go back to our component library. You should be having a furnishing elements. inside your library, and you can choose, let's see the grid here, and let's choose one table. So let's have one furniture desk. So just clicking it will allow you to bring that into your model. So no need to do anything special, just click it, go inside your model and place it where you want it to be. So I think that's pretty easy. But what if you want to change this component? Because right now we are inserting something that's already built into the library. So let's now look into page 30 of our training guide, and we'll see that we are able to actually customize this library object. And how do we do that? Just hover on that certain component and go into the quad. So within the quad, you would be able to see open copy of this component. So let's go to model. You should be able to find this, open a copy, and it'll create a copy for you in a totally different drawing. So you see that it's here now, and just remember that you would also see some parameters that were created here. So inside the structure panel, I would suggest, just as a tip as well, this is not inside the training guide, but maybe you can take note. You can hide these so that when you save this into your library and insert it later, you won't be seeing those notes, but at least the information will still be inside. So that's a tip for you. You might want to take notes if that's something that you want to remember. So let's go to the structure panel. No, we've done that and hidden the parameters. Let's go to the renders panel here, and let's do the modifications that we want. So let's say we have wood. We just maybe want to change the render for this tabletop, and let's go for some light wood. Okay, let's do that, and maybe some other material. Let's just find some metal material. Okay. This, okay, let's see here. These two, you might want it to be steel, and even the ones below, you can do any changes that you want here. So let's do that. Again, what I'm doing now is not in the training guide, but this is just something for you to take note of and remember if you want to change the information, because the one in the training guide will just directly show you how to add the component once you've modified it. But now let's see something that's actually modified. So let's say you've finished doing your modifications. We can now go. Yep. Okay. Thanks for muting yourself. Let's now go into our components library again, and you would see we're still inside furnishing elements, and you would see this plus icon here in a blue button. There's a plus icon there. You can click that, and now this is related to why we hid those parameters earlier. It was because we want to select the entire drawing when we want to save this component inside our library. And let's just create a name here. So let's say this is a desk. Top is wood. You can name it as you want. This is something that your customers might name according to their company standard. So let's put this is very rough right now. So you can choose a category, but right now we're actually inside already the furnishing elements. And there are options here of how you want to insert the units. So for me, we just prefer millimeters, but there are options there in case your customer asks. So let's create that. So once you've created that inside your furnishing elements, you would see that already here. Let's see it in this view. There's top wood, legs metal, and that's how we named it earlier. And once you're back into your actual building model, you would be able to insert this in. So let's just click that again and place it inside our model. So you can choose to play around with this and modify your components, maybe perhaps in a breakout session later. So one other thing that we have also on page 30 is inserting some other components inside our model. So let's say we go into the doors. Let's just place simple door here would be this, just a single door. And as you see here, because of the dynamic UCS, again, it's being placed where we want it to be placed. So again, you can put in the dimensions. Let's say on the left side, we just want it to be 4,000 away from the leftmost part of our wall. So I just make sure that I put in 4,000 there and click tab. And then at the top, I don't really mind. What I really want to do now is at the bottom, I want it to be, of course, placed on top of my floor slab. So this should be 0. So something like this, it will move according to how you are placing your dimensions. And let's just place that there. So that should be placed already. One of the other functionalities within BricsCAD is that when you hover on a door, it will also give you this option of flipping your door opening. So right now it's opening this way. I think you can see that on your screen. So I just click on BIM flip and it will flip on the other opening already. So for those of you dealing with designers, architects, this is quite important when they have their opening requirements for their designs. So that would save a lot of time for them. So now you see, I'm just going on to the other side. You would see on the other side, this is inserted inward and inset into the wall. And this is another option of flipping the door. We have BIM flip. We have another BIM flip here, which is where your door opening will be. So now clicking that, it will go to the other side. And now it's inset on this part of my wall. So that's, I think that's pretty good and quick to follow. So that should be easy for you to test out and properly. So now we've been talking about components that are already in the library. They may be already inside BricsCAD or they might have been created separately. But what about creating a custom component? So let's now go to page 31 and just make sure that you have a new wizard based on a template. So because we'll be creating a window for this component, so I'm going to go to start. And how do you do that template? You go to start and go to templates, and you would see a BIM window metric. So I'm going to choose this, or you can actually go to file, go to new wizard, and you will be given this dialog. Start from a template, go to this one, start from a template, and go to next. And you would find a BIM window metric template already there. Why do we need this? A window template will already give you the layers that you need for a window. So one other important thing to note would be to untick this use selected template as default, because each time you open a new drawing, it will be selecting this. So for now, we only want that window as a one-time thing. So we want to untick this and just finish. So you will be given a new drawing for you to make your window. So let's go to the layers part of our drawing. So as I mentioned earlier, because we are going into this using already a window template, we are being given several layers that are applicable to a window. So one of the most important layers for a component, especially a component that you'll be inserting into a wall, let's say a window, a door, any opening, would be the BC subtract. So BC subtract is very important. It is actually the way the wall or the floor would be subtracted into by your component. So this is not visible per se, but this is a very important part of your component. So you would see right now in the structure browser, there's nothing there yet. And we did talk about the structure browser also in previous sessions, wherein any component or entity that you're drawing in your model will be live updated in your structure panel. So let's create one and make sure that we are on the BC subtract layer, and we'll see how important this is as we go along. So we just create a window. I think you would be seeing that on page 32 of your training guides, and that's how we want our window to be like. So let's first create the subtract box for us. So you can go into primitives. We need a box for this. So let's go into primitives and select box. And another way would be just to go to your quad and go to box. If you don't see it there, you can go to model and you would see a box just under the subheading of model. So again, there are different ways to be able to select the specific tool that you need. So I'll just accept this 000 start point, and we will see that we can now enter some dimensions. So let's put in our dimensions, 15 by 700. So again, you just click tab if you need to go to the next part of your dimensioning. So just click that. And then if you left click, you will now be given an option to put in a height. So very important here would be, because we are in the subtract layer, it's important to go downward and not upward for this specific window. The reason being, our starting point is a 000, and that is actually the plane of the face of perhaps the building wall that we want to insert this component to. So as we go down, that means we are going into the building. And just imagine that if you go outside, you are actually subtracting outside the building, but that's not really important for us. We want to subtract inside the building. So we go downward. And in the training guide, let's just use 600 and follow. So once you imagine this, this specific plane, so let's click the face. So this specific face is also representing the wall face, and going into the building would be here. So that means that if, let's say you have a 200 wall, which will go somewhere here, that means your window is still safe to go into that specific wall, because your subtracting box or subtracting solid is 600 deep. But let's say you have a wall that's, let's just say 1,000. So your subtracting solid is only 600. So it's not going to punch through that 1,000 wall. So that's the importance of this subtracting solid. So just make sure you are familiar with this. This might be a question for you when customers are trying to create their own components. So sometimes just tweaking the thickness of your subtracting solid is already the solution to the issue or the problem that they're facing. So just remember that. Okay, so right now we already have our subtracting solid. What we now want to do is to create the actual window. So let's go into a frame. Let's just create a simple frame for this one. And make sure you are on the frame layer. And how do we now create the frame? So let us just make sure you have your boundary or your face selected, so that it'll select the actual top of the subtractor solid, because that's where we want to base our frame thickness. So to do that, we'll just offset and just go inside, and let's have a thickness of 40. Click enter. So since we have our boundary selection on, it's selecting the boundary of this specific enclosure for us. And what we want to do is actually the frame, right? So let's go to the outer boundary and go into our quad, and you'll find a solid extrude that's already there. So let's extrude this, and you would find that when you extrude, it's actually subtracting parts of your solid, but that's not what we want to happen. We want to create a frame that's also going to be visible, right? So go to your hotkey assistant and click Control. So I click Control once, and it goes to the next option, and you'd see that it's actually overlapping on the subtract layer. So that's a very important factor, because the subtract layer is not going to be visible. What's going to be visible is the frame itself. So this frame, we want it to be, let's just put it as 100, following the training guide. So we have now created that frame itself. And if you see here, the structure browser, we now have two solids. So one would be the solid subtractor, which is, I believe, is this one. And the other would be the frame that we are creating, which is on the frame layer. So as we go along, we will be not showing the subtractor itself. So it's good. We should really have that frame visible. All right. So that's a key thing to note. So because we have now the frame, I think we can hide this subtractor, can hide it, or actually you can also turn off here on the layers. So let's turn it off here. And you should just have your frame with you. So through this frame, we can now also select the boundary of this inner box or inner rectangle. And that's what we're going to use for the glass panel. So let's make sure that we are on the glass layer here on your layers panel, and just make sure you have your boundary selection on. And again, just use extrude. And for the glass, let's put in our 25 mm thickness for the glass. And that should be enough. So because we have our face selected, we are selecting each part of this glass, but turning that off, you'll be able to select the solid. But if you have it on, you can still do the selection again with the selection cycle of just clicking tab until you find or until you select the entity that you want to select. So I want to select the whole glass because I want to bring it down somewhere in the middle of the frame. So we can use manipulator for this. So if you remember manipulator, you just have a long left click, and it will appear based on the entity that you are selecting. So Kin has shown you this, and even the BricsCAD Pro training has shown this. So I think you would be very familiar. So let's just move this. And how to do that, you can click on the vertical part of your arrow for the manipulator, and let's type in 75. 75 would be the displacement of this certain glass panel that we want within our frame. So that should be good. And right now we kind of have a good simple window going on here. So right now I'm going into page 33. You would see that this is actually all just solids for now. It's not yet classified. So how do we make it into a window? Just put in BIM classify, and just select window. Okay, selecting window, and select the whole drawing. And now everything is assigned as a window. So if we go to our properties, you would see that it's already a window there. Okay, so I think that's pretty simple. And creating the component will be, again, similar to how we did it earlier. Let's go to window and just create here. So just follow along page 33. It's the same exact thing that we did earlier when we created this window. So I want to take maybe a few more minutes just to finish off until page 37, because this will be not too complicated. It's just additional ways of creating windows. So I'm going to go to page 34 now. Please look into your training guides. And these are just alternative methods. So how to make it even more easy for you to create windows. So I'm going to go back to the east drawing that we were going through earlier, and just close off my window so I can see the following polylines that we have created already and prepared for you. So we have a command called BIM window create. So it will create the window based on certain information or certain entities that you select. So if you see on page 34, there are 3 types of input geometry for this. So one will be a closed boundary on any solid face, one is a closed polyline, and another is a grid. So we'll see those 3 today. Let's first go into a solid polyline. So we see here, we have a polyline, and one of the options within the quad will be to create a window. So where was that? It should be a BIM create here. Okay, if we don't see that, then we can go straight to BIM window create. So you can type it there, BIM window create on your command line. And you would be asked to select exactly what we are discussing, boundary, a closed polyline, or a grid. So let's select this certain polyline. Just make sure it's being highlighted for you. Just select it. And just click enter or your space bar, and you'll be asked to select a specific style. So let's just choose the first one. So very easily, very quickly, you would see this. Okay. So let us go into another option. So this is the polyline option, and I'll just undo it a few times. So I'm going to go back to the original version of this drawing wherein I have these lines only. So because we have the boundary detection available or turned on, we can select this boundary. And within the quad, we should already be seeing window create window here inside your model submenu, and it will create the window for you. And click the style that you want, and you should be seeing something like this. And similarly here, the same way. So this is pretty good when your customers are rushing to have visualizations or just wanting to see very quick views of their design. So if you see here, each window is actually also having some properties. Go to properties. You would find some information here. Maybe let's go to lining thickness. And if you just change something there on your parameters, you would see that it's being also changed live for you on your model. So that's creating the window. And lastly, creating one with a grid. So let's just create one with a grid. And to do this, let's go to our back view of this model. Okay, so first, how do we create the grid so that we can create the window off of the grid? Under home, you would see here rectangular grid. Just here, it's being highlighted on my screen. Just click on that. Or if not, you can, of course, call the quad and select it from there. Let's use this face. So if you see here, my cursor is actually following this point or this line or line direction. So how do I make sure that it's going to be following this part of my drawing? Just make sure you click ortho, and the grid will already be vertical or 90 degrees for us. So that's just one tip again. So to lock this face, I can click on shift and it will be blue, meaning that it's already locked. My grid will be created on this certain face. So I just click there and I will see a grid. So just to explain how this grid functions, you would see 4 dimensions here. The topmost is the overall dimension of the width of your grid. Here will be overall height, and the lower left sides will be focusing on each grid box. So let's just put in 1, 2 here. Okay. And I'll just move my mouse so that I have 5 parts of this grid, and there should be enough for me. Okay. And you see the grid. And when you hover on the grid, you would be able to create that window again. So very easily, that's another way to create a window. All right. So following along, you would also find an option of a curtain wall here. Home, curtain wall. Below this, there's a panelize, but just choose curtain wall for now. And this is another way to create one. So let's go to curtain wall, and that will ask you to select a face. So let's select this part of our model. Once you select a face, it will already give you a certain part of grid or like several panels. So to explain here, you can just also input the number of panels you want for each direction. So NU will be number of panels on the horizontal side. So I want this to be, let's say, just 1 following the training guide, and NV will be how many panels going up. So NV, let's put in 5. So that will be the change for us. And you can just click there. And for this, we can just hit enter and accept that. You can even change the glass thickness or the connection type. So these are just other options that you can do as you create the curtain wall. But let's just accept that for now, and you easily create a curtain wall. So you can follow along and just repeat that on other parts of your model just to test that out. But I think that's easy enough to follow. And lastly, this is the very last before we go into the breakout room. I'll just take a couple of minutes and then we'll go to the breakout room already. So we'll use the curtain walls for this one. And let me just make this white color so it will be clear for everyone. Okay, so you'll see that clearly. So one of the other ways for us to be able to create glazing, this is more advanced glazing. This is similar to the type of grid that we were creating earlier, but it was edited. So how do you edit it? You can actually go to B-edit and select the grid. This is the grid that we are looking at, and you'll be brought into the grid. You can actually shift this around. Let's say we just shift it here, and then that's maybe the change what we want, save the block. And you'll go back to this grid and you remember that we shifted this certain line. So again, similarly, we can just create a window from here. Very quickly from the quad, just make sure it was the create window. So I just click that, and similar to what we were doing earlier, your window design would already be created. All right. And finally, we go to the panelizing of this lofted surface. So this lofted surface, you would already have encountered such a thing in the BricsCAD Pro training. But if you are wondering how it was created, it was actually created only with these three arcs or lines. So I'll just copy this just to show you how that was done. So we have those three. And just change that, easy for you to see. Yep, it's all a dot curve. So how was this done? Through loft? And lofting is just a loft command like this. So just select the specific information or entities that you want to be lofted, and that's how that was created. But that's only for your information. So now we want to actually panelize this loft. And how do we do that? We can now go to a curtain wall again, and we select the face, and this is the face of the lofted surface that we want to panelize. So just click on that. And within this, you can actually already accept this, but you can also change a number of panels similar to how we were changing number of panels earlier. So how do you do that? Number of panels can be changed, but also the length and width of the panels. So instead of NU, click on LU, L for London. So LU and then 1.5, enter. And then LV, enter, 1.5, enter. And it's changing the panelization for us. So let's accept that. And for this, let's just not planarize it for now. We can even change the glass thickness or the frame depth. So depth, let's put it at 150. And then the connection, just click on C. We want it to be smooth. So then we can accept this. So very quickly, you're able to do something like this in the model. And I think this is very good for visualization, very quick modeling for your customers.